So recently, someone asked me, Rabbi Schapiro, tell me, what's the best way to actually deal with the countertops for Pesach? Should I kasher them and cover them? Because my grandfather used to kasher and cover. Should I only kasher? Should I only cover? So, B'kitzur, let's just discuss what's the issue and the problem with countertops. Let's assume one does not kasher the countertop and does not cover the countertop. So he has chometz dike countertops on Pesach. What's the problem with having chometz dike countertops and using chometz dike countertops? So for starters, it might be dirty. It might be a shtikl chometz there, a little bit of schmutz, a little bit of grease that you can't see. So the answer to that is very pashut. You clean it very, very well. We're Baruch Hashem, we're in the industry of cleaning before Pesach. We know every single product and the best possible product that exists. So it's possible to properly clean the countertop. So Marash, what's the big deal? So the short answer is as follows. If you have a countertop that's not kashered or covered on Pesach, the main issue is if some food, hot food, will fall down on the countertop on Pesach, that food would be osur. And the reason why the food would be osur is as follows. We have to assume that the countertop is really chometzdik. How could the countertop be really chometzdik? Because probably at some point, a hot piece of lokshen, a hot piece of pizza on the milchike side or on the fleshike side, a hot piece of lokshen, spilled over once onto the countertop. And therefore, since it was hot, the tam from the lokshen or the pizza went befedish into the counter, at least kidei klipa, because of tata govar, so it only goes in kidei klipa. Beseder. Oh, but a klipa is oichaser. So the countertop is chometzdik now. Now, by the time Pesach comes around, of course, the countertop is an Eina Ben Yomli. But as we mentioned in some previous shilas, that on Pesach, we're machmid that an Eina Ben Yomli is also b'di'evet al pi haminig. Therefore, if food would fall onto the countertop, hot food would fall onto the countertop on Pesach, even though the countertop is clearly an Eina Ben Yomli, especially if it's Chol HaMoed, I hope you didn't cook any chametz on Pesach, so it has to be more than 24 hours. So b'meila, the food would be still also b'di'evet al pi haminig. So that's for starters. Enoch hanami, it's true that if you put a hot pot onto the countertop on Pesach, there's another halacha, which is shtei kedeiros noigoy zu bezu, do not aser each other. Two dry kalim do not aser each other. So therefore, if you put a hot pot of food directly onto this chometz dike countertop on Pesach, it would be no shaila b'di'evet al koponim, because from the countertop is a keli into your keli. Shtei kedeiros noigoy zu bezu is not an issue. That's b'med v'adam if it's dry, but if it spills over under the countertop, you have a serious issue, the same issue. Not only would the food be usher, but the time would come from the countertop into your pot and would create a serious problem, make it usher. So therefore, you cannot use a countertop on Pesach that was not treated with being covered or kashet. The noisif lazeh, the din of shtei kedeiros noigoy bezu is only muter b'di'evet. Lechatchila, the Ramah writes in a few places that you should be machmer lechatchila for shtei kedeiros noigoy bezu. So you can't even use the countertop for a hot pot to put down. Therefore, the countertop needs to be dealt with. There are those that are machmir, and they try to kasher their countertops with an irui klidishain and an even melubin or an iron. Now's not the time or the scope of explaining why, although l'chayda it's only also kedei klipa the counter, and irui is also kedei klipa, but nevertheless the poskim say you have to kasher it stronger than the regular typical irui, and that's the best way to kasher a countertop. However, covering a countertop is just as well, as long as it's a good cover like they sell here in the stores, that the food doesn't seep through, etc. And the reason is because no matter then what happens, everything is fine. If hot food falls onto it, it's not touching the counter, it's touching the cover. So no tam is coming out from the countertop. And even if you put a hot pot on the countertop, on this cover, l'chayda we said shtei kedeiros noigoy zu bezu is asur lechatchila. Nevertheless, the achronim write that shloisha kedeiros noigoy zu bezu, that if it's three clear kalim, the countertop, and then this thick cover that they sell, and then the pot is mutter even lechatchila. So if one covers the countertop, you have be'emes the same benefit of kashering the countertops, as long as providing, of course, that it's covered properly. So even if food falls on it, doesn't touch the counter, and even if you put a hot pot, it's mutter lechatchila. Even if it spills, it's also mutter. And to put a hot pot directly down is also mutter lechatchila. I once heard that someone once called that Rav Henkin Zatzal, who was a choshev Rav in New York, and asked him, how do you kasher countertops? And he said, our minhag is to cover. And he hung up the phone. The guy called him back. And he said, but Rebbe, I want to kasher them. How do you kasher them? So he answered, by us, the minhag is to cover. And he hung up the phone. Akoshen Afreilich and Pesach.